Every student will reach his or her full potential, prepared to thrive in a changing world. Our mission, we empower every student every day. Ask that Mrs. Baker will listen to the pledge in absence of Mrs. Waters. Ms. Baker, please.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to now move down to the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? If there's no change to the agenda, I ask someone to make a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's the movement proper second. They will accept the agenda as written. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. This evening here, we'd like to address the topic of this evening, the proposed closure of C.G. Cradle and the proposed closure of Wilton Elementary School. I call on Dr. Winborn to share with us ARPA number 301.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, board members and members of the public. Thank you for coming out this afternoon. We appreciate you being here. In just a minute, my team and I will provide an overview of the two proposed closure studies that you instructed us to draft for you. Mr. Perry, Associate Superintendent Perry, Assistant Superintendent Curran, who is joining us virtually, and Assistant Superintendent / Chief Finance Officer, Ms. Hines, will all kind of play a role in this. A couple of just things I'd like to point out. These are draft documents, okay? This is the first draft, and as you had indicated in your timeline, this is an opportunity for you all to kind of, well, you've had these now for several days to review, but after hearing us go through them tonight, ask any questions, try to receive points of clarification. If there's anything you would like added that's you do not see in here that you'd like to instruct us to work on, we'll be happy to do that. But again, this is a process, and this is just the first step. So I just wanted to kind of make sure everyone was aware. Following, going through these two studies, there's a third document that we have presented. I'd like to thank Board Member Hayes for her foresight in helping craft this. This document is what we're calling an FAQ, or frequently asked questions, and it is based on many of the questions that you all and senior staff have already received via email or other communications from members of the public. And so we thought it would be very helpful to put all of these questions in one document for everyone to see, because many people were having the same types of questions, and this would help benefit everyone and provide the same information across our public. So in just a minute, I'll start with the first study, because we're presenting them in the order in which they were shared in the motion at the last meeting. Both of these studies follow the same format, so they're going to look very similar. Some of this is information is verbatim. Also, these templates are based on the previous studies that the board has requested during our previous consolidation work. So to many of you, this is going to seem very familiar. Again, this is a work session, so it's informal. If you would like to kind of stop me or any of the team members as we're going through this, feel free. We'll kind of take our time. We're not going to read this document to you. I think that would not be a good use of our time. We're going to try to hit the highlights and then just get as much feedback as we can. Does that sound good?
Yes.
All right. Wonderful. Well, we'll get started with the first document, a study of the proposed closing of C.G. Cradle Elementary School, presented to the Board of Education October 21st. And the table of contents there are essentially 4 main parts of this document, along with a reference page. We've tried to follow the same sequence and keep it logical and as much we try to reduce the jargon as much as possible to keep this easy to understand and clear. Our attorney has not yet arrived yet, but the first section of the study for both documents provides an overview of the legal context, what the study should be about and what the elements should be, as well as the requirement to hold a public hearing before any final decision is made. Those are legal requirements, so you can all reference that and direct questions to her when she arrives. On page 6, you'll see we start with a historical perspective of C.G. Cradle Elementary School. It's quite fascinating to go back and read about the school. You know, it has been in existence, at least the main building, for over a century. It's one of the oldest continuous school buildings in the state. And it has, over the years, kind of had various stages built onto it. Most recently, in 2000, it had a modern renovation that was done. The entire campus was overhauled, added a new wing, a new media center, and they went and kind of stripped out all of the old mechanical systems out of the building. It was a pretty extensive renovation process. You can see on page 8, there's information about the enrollment, the history of the enrollment. We decided to only go back, 7 or 8 years. And you can see that the kind of general information about all of our elementary schools. We have about 2,600 students, was our day 20 count, not including Granville Academy or Phoenix Academy. And then just to give you some reference, the average size of an elementary school in North Carolina that we were able to determine is about 500 students. So generally our elementary schools are running a little bit smaller than the average. You'll notice that there's an asterisk there when we closed Creedmoor Elementary School. We only included that to remind everyone that there was some significant redistricting that took place around that time, and it did have some impact across the entire district. There was some disruption in choice programs and so forth, so that was a factor. But generally speaking, enrollment has gone up and then back down a little at Cradle. So we're sitting at 306 students right now. And then on the back of page 9, you can see the distribution of all of our elementary schools for context, with the capacity, the number of choice students that attend each school, the percentage of students that are attending there by choice, and the overall capacity of the school. So I'll note, when you're looking at maximum student capacity, that is not necessarily a desirable amount. When you hit that maximum, your school is going to be extremely full. Your cafeterias and other common areas are going to be pretty stressed. So we don't always want to see us at 100% capacity. I think we've used a 90 to 95% range as optimal. And that's when you're hitting that sweet spot of being efficient, but at the same time not overcrowded. So any questions about that sort of first section? Legal context and historical perspective. All right, I'll move on to section 3, factors to consider. School demographics. I think it's important to note that choice, our program of allowing students to pick a school outside of the attendance zone in which they live, has been very popular in our school district, and for a variety of reasons. Some parents pick a different school because of where they work, and for convenience factors, daycare, et cetera. Others pick the schools because of the programs they have, and so forth. So you can see on page 10, there are the numbers by grade level of students that attend that school by choice, a total of 53. And then you can see the base schools that they come from. So it's kind of a count both ways. So page 11 and 12 talk about the demographics of our county as a whole, and this goes beyond just our schools. I think a lot of people tend to focus on the news about the tremendous growth that is coming to Granville County. They see the new housing developments that are being planned or being built, And it makes them concerned about us having enough room in Granville County Public Schools. It's interesting to note, however, that we have lost students to charter schools, which are public schools here at Granville County Public Schools, but we're also facing a situation where the number of school-age children in our county is declining over time, despite the fact that the total population is going up. The average age of our residents is increasing, and the number of students per household, or the number of children, let me back up, the number of individuals in a household is declining. So I think the average is now 2.1 individuals per house. So, you know, that's certainly very different than it was 20, 30 years ago. Page 12 is a chart that was provided by the county that shows, you know, projections all the way out to 2030. And what it, you know, to kind of boil those figures down, really, we're only looking at, assuming we keep 7 elementary schools right now, by 2030, we would only gain an additional 4 students per grade level per school, or about 25 more kids per school, if everything else held equal. And that is already accounting for the projected growth. Because by 2030, we're expected to have almost 10,000 more residents in our county. 73,000, which is up from about almost 63,000 now. So despite the fact that we're going to have 10,000 more individuals in our county, the total number of school-aged children is going to trail far behind that.
Because we've included information from Granville County Administration, could we also include the average age of the person moving into Granville County in that?
Absolutely. Yeah,
I believe it's 43.
43, okay.
But you would have to double
that.
check with the county manager. I think I heard that report from Economic Development.
It's surprisingly high.
Correct.
Yeah. I will add too, and this is not in the study, but this is a trend that's not unique to our county. I believe recently I heard that Wake County, for the first time, their enrollment declined. So this is more of a demographic phenomenon across the country. So, you know, I think the takeaway from this section about county demographics is that, you know, the anticipated growth does not translate necessarily into many more students. In other words, it signifies, the last line on page 11, this signifies a negligible projected growth in school enrollments over the next 6 years.
But that's based on, correct me if I'm wrong, that's based on the current options available, not the growing options available to all students, correct?
That's a very good point.
Because isn't that what we've seen?
Yes, because, you know, not only are more charter schools opening up around our county, but more families are taking advantage of private school vouchers, and there are also more families that are choosing to homeschool their students. So those are all factors. The market share is kind of shrinking, but the number of options are expanding. You want to look at it that way. And be sure to add that average age in there. Any other questions or comments? I think next will be Mr. Perry to talk about the academic success of CG Cradle.
Certainly. Good afternoon, everyone. Beginning on page 16, you'll begin to see the narrative regarding CG Cradle's academic composure, beginning with the number of teachers who are currently teaching different subjects and what we call specials or enhancement curriculum courses such as art, PE, and things of that nature. Beginning on page 14, we share information regarding our student support services, which would include academically and intellectually gifted, our English language learners, as well as our exceptional children. So you see a count there by grade level. That is something that will be shared in both studies. Page 15 shows you our academic performance for CG Cradle since 2014 up into the current, most recent school year, 2025. This is based on the internal ready reports that we received from the Department of Public Instruction. You can see their EVOS growth status as well as the school performance grade over the span of the last 10 or so years. Page 16, we talk about the impact on our Exceptional Children's Program. CG Cradle does have 2 self-contained EC classrooms and 1 resource teacher. Just to kind of bring up the speed on the self-contained classroom, those classrooms serve students with the most severe needs. So we would have to evaluate that shift if that school were to close. The description of the choice program is also listed on page 16, which talks about the character development of students as far as the nurturing skills and good citizens as future leaders. And if that school decision was, that program could be shifted to another school if there was a closure. Page 17 goes into human capital. I believe Dr. Kern will provide more information there, unless there are any questions.
I think it's worth noting that Cradle has a very proud history of academic achievement, particularly with their growth, having met or exceeded growth for the past 8 years, which is quite remarkable. Dr. Kern, are you there?
I am. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you for joining us virtually.
Yes.
And Dr. Kern is at a conference, a state conference right now, so.
Well, on page 17, you'll see that there is information laid out about how schools are staffed and what the allotment is for core teachers for each school. That is not specific to any school, so you'll see that information in both studies. And then at the bottom of that page, you will see information specific to Cradle. There are currently 17 classroom teachers for 6 grade levels, K through 5, with 16.7 of those being funded by ADM funding. Title I covers the additional 0.3 classroom teacher position for that one. And then they have 1 PE teacher and 1 art teacher funded through the enhancement allotment. So I want to be clear that the ADM allotment is classroom teachers, and in elementary schools, enhancement allotment is how you get those other positions. They do have 1 math interventionist that's funded through local funding and 1 reading interventionist that is funded through Title I, and so that's a total of 21 teachers. On page 18, you can see the breakdown of the number of teachers per grade level and also the class size information per grade level per class. So you can see how many students are in each classroom and then the average for that grade level as well. On page 19, it talks a little bit about the Exceptional Children's Funding, AIG, ESL, programs. Those are all funded separately, but then each school is allotted 1 principal. So of course Cradle has 1 principal, and assistant principals are allotted very differently. You get months of employment for assistant principals, and they're funded based off the total ADM for your district, not for a particular school. And we have 1 AP position at Cradle. We also have 1 counselor position. Cradle actually uses that position for a school social worker, and you earn 1 for every 211 students there. Page 20 goes into the school-based classified staff members that we have there. There is a receptionist, a data manager, a bookkeeper. They do have 5 teacher assistants. 3 are in classrooms. 1 is in a dean of students role, and 1 is in the media center role. And 2 full-time custodians and 1 part-time custodian. So before I move to the next section, I just want to give time for any questions about the human resources side.
I don't see any hands up, Dr. Kern, so I think you're okay to move on.
Okay, so the next section is safe and healthy campuses. So it looks at our facilities and maintenance, transportation, and all the operational sections of this. So page 21 gives information about capacity of the elementary schools in the northern part of our county. So Cradle, West Oxford, and Stovall. You can see the 20-day enrollment, what Dr. Winborn was referring to earlier as the optimal capacity, which is 90% of the maximum capacity for that building. And it gives you a list of the average surplus capacity. Then on page 22, it provides information about costs, both costs that we have had and costs that are upcoming for Cradle. So since the 21-22 school year, there have been over $1 million worth of upgrades and replacements at Cradle. That has included roofing in one building and HVAC upgrades. There are still more than $800,000 worth of critical capital outlay needs that would happen in the next 15 years. About $273,000 is for roof, $60,000 for HVAC, and $100,000 for controls upgrade. And then there are also some parking lot and playground equipment upgrades. We do expect, of course, the chiller would need to be replaced in the future, and the parking lot would eventually need to be completely repaved. So that is in there as well. The air quality at Cradle has been good. All of the recent testing, the most recent was May of 2025, indicated that there were no issues, and the humidity is well maintained in that building. Page 23 talks about transportation. Right now, there are 3 regular education buses that run daily and 1 exceptional children's school bus. Serves approximately 136 students, about 189.5 miles, and they're combined on the road for about 8.75 hours per day. The distance between schools is laid out there. If Cradle Elementary were to close and students were transferred to the other northern end elementary schools, we would likely not see a cost savings because those students would still have to be bused to and from their homes. The routes would probably be longer, especially depending on how the northern end were rezoned by attendance zones. So we would anticipate increase in driver salaries, fuel, and regular maintenance. 24 has a chart that just shows the mileage between all of our schools. And that is really it for the facilities part. Are there any questions or any additions you would like for us to make for next time?
Dr. Curran, this is Stan. I was wondering, could you back up to the bottom of page 21 and talk a little bit about the capacity, maybe provide that last paragraph, provide some clarification about what that means?
Okay. So if you look at the capacity numbers, the total available capacity to receive Cradle students right now at our other 2 schools would be 219 based off of the 20-day enrollment. And I wanted to point out that that does not include pre-K. So if you were to move the students to West Oxford and Stovall and realign the attendance zones in the northern part of the county, it is very likely that the space that we have available for pre-K programs in the northern part of the county would decrease. It's also highly likely that we would have to use mobile classrooms at Stovall and West Oxford to accommodate the additional students at those 2 schools. The number that would be required at each school would depend on how the attendance zones were laid out, but it is almost certain that you would have to use them at one or both schools.
Thank
So I have a question about the additional mobile units. So we rent those, right?
There's several ways to go with mobile units. You can purchase them, but you can also lease them.
Could that cost be?
Yes, we could get the information about the costs for mobile units.
Any more question, board members? Dr. Curran? If not, Thank you, Dr. Curran. Mrs. Hayes, Mrs. Hines, Mrs. Martin.
The closure of any school is obviously going to result in some sort of savings for the district. The way schools are funded,
Not,
Speaking is,
you might need to get a little closer, I don't know if it's sensitive enough.
the way schools are funded, we
Correct.
receive funding specifically for the ADM, our enrollment in a particular school. And that is how the state funds us. Certain costs at a school would follow the student wherever they land in the district at a different school. There are other costs that are specific to the operation of a specific school that would be ending in the case of closing a school. I've shared some existing costs and savings down below on page 25. Please recognize that these are actual 24-25, school year 24-25 costs, specifically for Cradle Elementary. In 24-25, the annual costs were just under 3.2 million. Anticipate ongoing costs after consolidation would be about 2.3 million. So what would be ending specifically would be about $891,000. And the majority of that lies in personnel costs. Whenever you close a school, then you have the principal, the assistant principal, guidance, the office staff, custodial staff, all of those would be reduced to the. And then, of course, you have some utilities and facility maintenance costs that would end as well. Each school receives specific state funding to cover the cost of the principal. So that $125,000 would also lose that funding from the state. So we're going to take that out of that potential savings. That brings us to about $765,637 in potential annual savings. Note that the transportation costs that Dr. Curran referred to in the previous section are to be determined, because those are going to be dependent on the actual, those are going to be dependent on the actual student assignment and different bus routes that we're looking at. Any questions about that annual savings? So bottom line annual savings about $765,000. What we do know is that the process of moving students and consolidating schools has an associated cost with it. So part one, you'll see we're estimating $60,000 for moving the furniture and materials out of Cradle Elementary. If you remember our last studies from our last consolidation efforts, those are estimated a little bit higher because what we've recognized is that prices are running higher than they were before. And then in part two, we know that there are carrying costs. The board would have the option of either maintaining an empty building or selling the building or somehow disposing of the building. We always like to calculate the carrying cost of a facility, though. Again, in prior years, we used to estimate 25% of continuing costs that would be needed to carry the housing of an empty building. What we have, in the last round of consolidation, looking at actual figures, it's higher than that. It would be about 50% of those utilities and facility maintenance costs that would be carried along as long as we own that building. So those ongoing costs would total about $59,000.
And Ms. Hines, again, those numbers are specific to Cradle, is that correct?
Exactly, yes.
Okay, based
correct.
on last year's numbers?
Based on last year's numbers, that's correct. On page 27, you can see an overall review. We have to consider a year one savings and then ongoing savings, because we like to take out the cost of the relocation of the students. We estimate that the year one savings would be about $646,000, and then the ongoing savings would be about $706,000. And the way, and there's just a note down below that at the bottom of page 27, that when we're looking at these funds in terms of state and local funds, right? Because the way these funds work together is they're somewhat intertwined, and they can cover each other. So while there might be state funds that are saved, that results in a savings of local dollars. Do you all have any questions about the financial side?
Board members, any questions for Ms. Hines?
I guess I do have one question. So in the HR, they're saying that there would not be any cost savings, and you're saying that this would be aside from any potential non-savings that we would, right? Like, this is separate from HR. HR is saying from like the buses and the busing routes and all of those kinds of, they're saying no savings on that side, but regardless, this would still be.
We won't know for certain about the cost of transportation and how it's different from the current year until we get the actual bus routes. So that's why there's a TB. There very well may be no difference. I just wanted to leave that placeholder in there just in case there is a difference.
Thank you.
And I'll also include the cost of the modular units in there in the next revision.
Ms. Lebrecht, thank you for that question about transportation, because in previous studies, you've seen some draft kind of attendance zones. We hope to bring those to you in the next 2 cycles, certainly. That's taken some time, and Dr. Ham has had to get some extra help from NC State with that. It's proven to be quite tricky, especially with the northern attendance zones, because you have one school in Oxford and one up further north.
Speaking of that, Dr. Winborn, you said that if we were to close the Cradle, it would be a longer bus route. Can you estimate how long the route would be for the kids to go from Oxford to Stovall Shaw, vice versa?
I really can't. I know that right now Stovall already has some of the longer routes, just because of the geography of the northern half of our county. You know, when you look at a map, Oxford is actually in the middle of our county. So, you know, we just have one school that serves that vast area of the northern part of our county. So, I mean, we can certainly get that information, though. It's like average route times and such.
I'm thinking to have a longer route would also add more fuel costs to
Oh, yeah.
the buses. So,
Sure.
any more
Can I
questions?
jump in real quick on
Yes.
that?
Thank you,
Dr.
Dr.
Whitmore. Yes, so we have entered into a contract with ITRA to help to create these new routes, and the plan is that on November 4th, they would be able to provide us with multiple options for both the northern and the southern attendance zones. And then we could whittle those down based off of your feedback and have kind of final drafts for the December meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Kern, for that. Dr. you wanna-
So the last part is just a conclusion, just to kind of provide some summary. We tried to do this for both documents. So based on all the data in this study, the closure of CG Cradle and the reassignment of students to the neighboring elementary schools may accomplish the following: provide a potential annual recurring cost savings to the school district of just over $700,000, reduce the existing current capital outlay liability of facility needs by $859,000, and then if you kind of cost that out over 15 years, that would be a projected savings of the district of $11.4 million. It would increase the efficiency of our staffing and provide potential increases in academic opportunity for our students. As Mr. Perry alluded to, you know, when it comes to our positions, when a school is more efficient, they can provide more opportunities to children. And we saw that with our secondary schools, you know, increasing the number of electives, enhancement courses, honors, et cetera. It could provide potential, and then 6, impact school culture and the community in a variety of ways, some of that very negative. And then number 7, impact transportation as determined by the third-party analysis. And what that's referring to is Dr. Curran referenced ITRE, and that's an acronym, I-T-R-E, and that's a group out of NC State that helps school districts figure out things like this.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Winborn, for the proposed closure for C.G. Cradle, the team here. Now we may move to the proposed closure for Wilson Elementary School.
All righty. Well, again, some of this is going to seem a little familiar. You have before you the second study of the proposed closing of Wilton Elementary School presented to the board on October 21st, 2025. Again, table of contents, and the first 3 pages are the legal context for the study and the public hearing. I'll then go to page 5 to provide some historical perspective about Wilton. The history of the school goes back over 100 years. Some interesting facts about the original post office and clothing store was blown away by a tornado. I think that was kind of interesting. That was very noteworthy in the historical accounts. And then the Wilton High School was constructed in 1924. And you can see a photo of the old school. We had many schools throughout the county that used this almost same architecture. I think there was one in Stem, one in Berea, and may have been one in the Butner area as well. But that was added on to in the 30s and 40s and the 50s. And then when South Granville opened in the 60s, it kind of switched. The grade configurations changed. And then in 1985, they broke ground on what is now the existing school, more or less in the same site. I believe it was offset a little bit. But then again in 91, some additional classrooms were added. They bumped on a little bit more and expanded the cafeteria as well, and made some additional renovations. And there's just an aerial shot from 2012, you can see. More or less, that's this current setup now. Any questions about the history of Wilton? All right, moving on, page 8, the enrollment summary. Again, some of the same information that was in the other study about all of our schools. And again, enrollment at Wilton, which you'll see represented on the chart on page 9, enrollment has fluctuated quite a bit. Prior to the construction of Tar River Elementary School in 2011, Wilton was busting at the seams and had mobile units and so forth. Then once that school was built, redrawing of the attendance zones occurred, and around that same, shortly thereafter, Wilton was designated a choice school and began the Leader in Me. So you can see on page 9, the chart at the top, enrollment started to decline again, but then in 2022, Creedmoor Elementary School of the Arts was closed, and once again attendance lines were redrawn, and enrollment started to go back up, and then for this past year it dipped again. The same chart on the bottom of page 9 is the one that was in the other study, showing student capacity, enrollment, the number of students that live in that attendance zone, the number that attend by choice, and the percentages for those students. Any questions about the school demographics, or the school enrollment, rather?
I have one question. I hate to say about the Leader in Me. We receive a lot of emails from teachers and parents about the program, the Leader in Me, concerned about that.
Yes, ma'am.
So if we were to close that school, how would that program look at a new location, or that would be the case?
That is addressed further in the study under the academic section, so I think we'll get to that. Maybe Mr. Perry can speak to that too.
Thank you.
That's a great question. Any other questions about the enrollment summary? All right. Page 10, again, the choice program impact. 93 of the 322 students attend the school by choice, and you can see the distribution by grade level and by the receiving school. So, you have students from across the district that attend Wilton for choice, and these numbers are updated K-5 choice. We've been able to verify. I know there was, we had shared some previous information about this that has since been corrected. So these numbers are accurate. And then page 11 and 12, you can see the exact same figures that were in the previous study regarding the county demographics. Again, with the same points being made about while there's an increase in total population, school-age children populations continue to go down.
Will you add the same information?
Absolutely. All right, with that, unless there's no questions, I'll turn it over to Mr. Perry to talk about academic success at Wilton.
Page 13 begins academic success, and just as with the study that was previously mentioned for C.G. Cradle, it does begin with information regarding the teaching staff. Dr. Kern will provide more detailed information regarding how those teachers are allotted based on whether or not it is state-funded, locally funded, or through additional federal funding. Turning to page 14, you do see numbers there related to student support services, and I do want to make a correction on the English language learners. For grade kindergarten and for grade 5, that should be less than 5. That would be less than 5, and that will be changed in the actual original document, so I'll make those corrections. Page 15 gives the academic performance of Wilton Elementary School, and as you can see, over the last 10 years, the school has either met or exceeded growth, maintaining within the last 4 years a great school performance grade of a C, and you can see the performance and growth scores combined. And that information, again, is from our internal Ready reports that are provided by the Department of Public Instruction. Moving along to page 16, the impact on the Exceptional Children's Program and the self-contained classes. Wilton currently does not have an EC self-contained classroom. Therefore, this would not be a factor in the consideration. They do have exceptional children, but they do not have a self-contained classroom. Wilton does have the Leader in Me program, which is a part of their choice model. That has been in implementation for a number of years now, and that has developed from the Stephen Covey model of Leader in Me. So that framework provides pretty integrity-based with character, measuring students' approach with effective practices to teach leadership. So that is very important to note there, which is very different from other schools here in the district. Along with that program, so what would happen if this school were to close? This program could be merged and implemented at another school. However, the school would not maintain its lighthouse status. The staff would have to be trained. The new staff members need to be trained. The school would need to be trained to be able to fully implement the Leader in Me program. And in order to maintain or earn the lighthouse status, it would be a number of years of work for those staff members and for students to be able to get that status. Listed also on page 17, you'll see information regarding the cost, the membership cost, and the additional coaching that is provided for teachers who are trained through the Leader in Me program with the Covey model.
Explain to me more about the lighthouse status. I'm not fully understanding.
That's a designation from the Covey program model. So that's an exceptional badge of honor for schools who have fully implemented the program, long-standing, pretty much a medal of distinction for schools who who implement the Leader in Me program.
One question. What was the time frame you said normally it's that for to get that?
That would take some time because remember, you would have to start from scratch for implementing a new program at a new location.
Who incurs the cost of that program? Is it discretionary funds from the school or the district?
The district, I believe that's through federal funds. District federal funds. The district, is it?
Out of
Okay.
federal funding?
We can add that
Could you
information.
follow up with us about that?
Sure. Any additional questions?
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Dr. Kern, for minutes? Dr. Kern?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. So if you look at page 18, it's the same information about how core teachers are allotted and positions are allotted. But on the bottom of page 18, it does give you information about the number of teachers at Wilton. So Wilton Elementary currently has 17 classroom teachers for 6th grade levels, K through 5, funded by the ADM, and they have 1 PE teacher and 1 art teacher. So out of that enhancement allotment, that again is a separate allotment, so a total of 19 teachers. Page 19 goes through how many teachers they have per grade level and the current class size and then average class size based on those numbers. Any staffing, again, outside of that is from a different budget source. So there is 1 principal at that school and 1 assistant principal at that school. There's also 1 school counselor. This is on page 20. School-based classified staff members, there's 1 bookkeeper and 1 data manager, and those 2 individuals split receptionist duties for the school. So the closure would allow you to absorb those cost savings and personnel, which was the same for the Cradle as well. Wilton, there are 5 teacher assistants, 4 of whom are assigned to classrooms and 1 who is assigned to the media center, and 2 full-time custodians. Are there any questions about the human resources side?
We may have one, Dr. Kern. Hold just a sec.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand this graph on page 18.
Page 18.
Oh, just
Okay.
kidding. I'm with you. Continue. Sorry.
Dr. Kern, proceed, please.
Okay, all right. So then on page 22, we start to get into the facility side. There's information about the facility capacity. On this study, you will see that all of the southern end elementary schools are listed with that 90-day capacity, and then the average surplus capacity. The total capacity kind of left in the other 3 elementary schools, which would be Tar River, Mount Energy, and Butner STEM, is 339. So you could accommodate 339 students. And again, pre-K is not included in any of this information. Page 23 goes into the capital outlay needs. Wilton campus currently has more than $3.5 million worth of capital outlay needs within the next 15 years. About $2.7 million is for roof replacement, and then there's over $400,000 for HVAC upgrades. Those systems are kind of nearing end of life. There's also an underground fuel tank that is on that campus that really needs to be removed. It was installed in 1977, and so of course that would cost us, it's about $35,000 to remove that. Just like at the other school, there are playground and parking lot repairs and enhancements that we anticipate upcoming as well. So the figures for that are there, and the air quality testing information is also there. We don't anticipate any issues at Wilton. All of their testing has come back very clean, and the humidity is within the proper range, so we don't have any concerns there. Page 24 goes into transportation. Right now, Cradle, that says Cradle, we need to update that. Wilton has 3 buses that serve approximately 121 students, and they travel 193 miles and are on the road for about 8.5 hours a day. So it also has the distance between Wilton and the closest schools. If the students are at Wilton, were transferred to somewhere else, there could be a cost savings in transportation, but it would depend, again, on the final attendance zones for the schools. That would determine ride times, any extra costs that we would maybe incur from buses being on the road longer, having more wear and tear, drivers, driving longer, those kinds of things. Again, page 25 has that same chart that has all the distances between the schools. And that is all for the transportation and operations section.
Dr. Curran, I have a question about the pre-K program. Wilson does have a pre-K program,
Yes.
Yeah, they do have a pre-K classroom, yes.
so if it was moved or closed, where would those students go?
There is space at the other elementary schools in the southern end of the county to relocate that program.
Okay, so would they also have to, auxiliary?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Would they
The last-
also have to lease mobile units?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions, Dr. Curran, board members? If not, Ms. Hines?
Absolutely. Page 26 is the beginning of the fiscal responsibility section, and it looks very similar to what we saw with the Cradle study. Again, these are 24-25 annual costs. The Wilton annual cost came to $2.6 million. Anticipated ongoing cost after consolidation would be $1.9 million. That's a savings of $724,000. And again, we go back into those personnel costs that were ending, as well as utilities and facility and maintenance costs specific to Wilton. Again, we have the state funding for principal that would be lost for this, that $125,000. We're holding off on the transportation costs until we get the additional information from the studies. And so that leaves the closure of Wilton with a potential annual savings of just under $600,000, $598,443. On page 27, we look again at the costs that are associated. Again, the moving costs are associated with the relocation in part one. Part two, we look at the carrying cost, again, assuming 50% of the facility and maintenance costs and utilities. So estimated carrying ongoing cost would be $51,832. And on page 28, you can see the overall financial review. Year one, we would estimate a $486,611 savings. And year two and future, we would, the ongoing, we would estimate $546,611. Are there any questions about the financial outlook for this change?
Does the financial outlook include any savings from the potential discontinuation of the Lighthouse program?
No, that is not included.
Okay.
Not included at all. So
I'm
we'll
sorry,
look at.
what was the question? I couldn't hear you, Ms. LeBlanc.
If the financial savings would be included, would that include the potential ending of the Lighthouse program? And then actually, I do have another question, which may have been more for academic, I apologize. But the Lighthouse program, is there another school that would be optimal to merge that with? And how long would such a program merge take approximately?
It's a good question. That would require more investigation, to be honest with you. I do have the answer to the question regarding the financials. The Title IV federal program paid for the Leader in Me program membership and the professional development.
How long has the program, been at Wilton?
That I'm not sure. I would have to
It's
investigate.
included, I
That's
think.
included in here?
Okay.
This is before my time, so. But it's been around for a number of years,
Yes.
well, at least 10 years. It's over 10 years.
2014, 15.
Yeah, okay.
Looks like. Ms. LeBrecq, I can maybe speak a little bit to your point about choice schools in general. Whenever there is a theme that emerges for a school for their choice program, that is driven at the school level. So I know the principal who was at Wilton at the time, her and many of the staff there learned about the Leader in Me program, investigated it, and took it upon themselves with the blessing of the board and the superintendent at the time. But it was really school-driven, and that's usually been the case for any of our choice programs. For example, West Oxford, similar situation with their Global Leaders and Dual Language program. You know, it's usually something that comes from school leadership level. because you need that investment at the school level to make it work.
I want to circle back to a question. Ms. Wilson is listening. So she provided me with an answer regarding how long would it take? 3 to 5 years to achieve lighthouse status. But implementation, 1 to 3 years.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah, so I also have one related to academics. So we're looking at class sizes, and I know that we got a number of emails with concerns about small class sizes. So, I know this obviously, but who sets class sizes
Who
for
set-
elementary school?
The state.
Sets limits on class
Yes.
sizes? Yes, thank you. So I find it very interesting that, when we're looking at these charts, actually, that Cradle has smaller class sizes, on average, with the exception of the 4th and 5th grade at each school. But when you're looking at the numbers for each, on average, Cradle's class sizes are smaller. It's page 19 for the Wilton study and page 18 for the
Sorry.
Cradle study.
Ms. Hayes, I'm glad you pointed that out. I think it's also worth noting that a principal has some discretion about how they use their positions as well. For example, they could choose to have an interventionist instead of a grade level teacher. So they're sacrificing some average class size, but maybe for a different type of support. And usually that's done, the principal and the school improvement team will help kind of drive those decisions. But you're 100% right. The state sets limits, and we have to submit those reports that we're abiding by those
It's
limits.
legislated.
Yeah.
Any more questions for Ms. Hines, or if everyone's not, we can go to closure?
Just go to the conclusion?
Yes, please.
Okay. On page 29, sort of the same summary. Based on the information shared here thus far, closure of Wilton may accomplish the following: provide a potential annual recurring cost savings to the school district of $546,000. And again, I'll point out, as with both studies, these figures are not one time, but they are annual recurring. So it's continual. And it would also reduce the existing current capital outlay liability of facility needs by $3.7 million. And this would result, again, if you just push it out 15 years, a total projected savings of $11.9 million. It could increase the efficiency of our staffing district-wide, provide potential increases in academic opportunities for students, impact school culture and community in a variety of ways. And of course, impact of transportation will be to be determined when we work with that third party. We'll be bringing you more information about that.
All right. Well, thank you once again, Dr. Wimple, and your team for giving us a very clear pathway or proposal of how we can choose to make the best decision for our county here, propose closing or Wilton or C.J. Cradle. As Dr. Wimple mentioned earlier, that with the frequent emails received from parents, teachers, and our community leaders here, Board Member Hayes, we kept getting the same question asked over and over again. So Board Member Hayes decided to give us a document of those questions here. So we're going to kind of go through those questions here and give the answers to those questions as well here. Give you a more clear understanding of how we're going to try to make our decision about which school will be most beneficial to close or merge. I'll be doing, hopefully, legal and funding for limitations here. This is based on what we call North Carolina general statute, if the statute has not changed here. So here it says frequently asked questions, school consolidation efforts here. Our public schools district in North Carolina legally allowed to fundraise to cover reoccurring operation costs like salaries, utilities, or maintenance? The answer is no. Schools may not receive donations, but may receive donations, thank you, but not rely on funding for ongoing operation expense. That's General Statutes 25201.
So I would like to just make this really abundantly clear that this is also a draft.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this was put together literally days after we had our last meeting. And we've received a lot
communication since then. And
Okay.
so I do want to reiterate that I want board members to weigh in if you see a gap somewhere in information or feel like something needs to be added or rephrased. And I also want to invite our attorney to look over this after, because I did put that in the email. I am not an attorney, and so we want you to fact check a lot. Okay.
Thank you, Board Member Hayes. If the district sells a school property, does that money stay with the district? Answer is no. Proceeds go to the county and are typically applied to existing or future schools' construction debt services.
May I speak to that?
Yes.
That's kind of half true.
Okay.
It is the funding, that's an option, that it would
Okay.
go back to the county to take care of debt service. The other option is that it could be used for capital purposes within the district. That's really a conversation with the county
Okay.
to make that decision. But I think the more important piece is that it can't be used for operational costs. It can only be used for capital purposes.
And also, because we've had this discussion before, and the reason why it wasn't included is because if we were to choose to do that, to use it for capital outlay, they could then in turn around and reduce the amount of capital they give us in our annual budget, correct?
Correct.
By that exact same amount or more. That's at their discretion, correct?
Absolutely. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good point.
Number 3, can the district legally run a deficit or spend beyond its approved budget? Answer is no. State law requires school districts to operate with a balanced budget each fiscal year. And that's what Ms. Hines always try to make sure we are operating with a balanced budget here. Are there any grants or one-time appropriations that could permanently replace recurring state and local funding sources? Answer is no. Those are temporary solutions that do not sustain operational costs year over year. Are there any statutory or policy restrictions on how local education funds can be used? Answer is yes. Under North Carolina General Statutes 115C429 and 115C434, county appropriation must be spent and adopted in the budget resolution. Capital funds are further restricted for construction and maintenance only, not sales or operation. Number 6, does the board have the authority to raise taxes or generate new revenue independently? Answer is no. Only county commissioners may levy local taxes under North Carolina General Statutes 135A149.
And
Yes.
I did want to, I don't know if we need to amend this, but I did find that there are 2 small city districts that I think levy taxes in the state of North Carolina. But those are like they're contained in a municipality, so I'm not sure, what the restrictions are on that.
My last question here. If a district continues operating schools it cannot afford, what are the legal or financial risks? Answer, the district could fall under state fiscal control under North Carolina General Statute 15C436, risk payroll disruption, and violate the School Budget and Fiscal Control Act. Those conclude my questions on legal and funding limitations. Board Member Hayes, you want to show yours next?
Sure. What was the total operating costs last year, for the 2 schools considered for closure, compared to the number of students each served? I won't go through each of those, but I would like to thank, the staff because they weighed in. I didn't have those exact numbers, but I knew that those were questions that were being asked, so thank you for providing that. What specific grants?
Ms. Hayes, I'm sorry. Will you read that last line below the charts?
Sure.
And then Ms. Hines may want to weigh in on this one, because this one is a little tricky.
Please do. It just says operating costs can vary widely by year and by school due to longevity of employees, salary scales, specific school needs, size of the campus, and requirements of programs.
The reason we wanted to bring it up is because if you notice, the per pupil, the ADM of each of the schools is pretty similar. It's important to note that they have been shifting over years. So Cradle has been decreasing a little bit, Wilton has been increasing a little bit, and funding sometimes takes a minute to catch up. But the per pupil, the question was, what are the cost per pupil? And Cradle is at 10,000, Wilton is at 8,000 per pupil. And again, that it does vary widely. And when in that statement below, when we talk about longevity of employees, we're talking about years of service. You know, employees that have been around longer cost a little more. Also, we know that the two schools are different sizes. Cradle is a larger school, so there's a larger impact there. And of course, requirements of programs. There are different needs at the different schools. And of course, you know, we mentioned the cost of Leader and Me. Federal funds aren't included in this cost analysis. So just important to note those things.
And when you talk about different programs, you're talking about things like exceptional children, serving our children with disabilities and things like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if, you know, and we go back to the difference in exceptional children at each of the schools, and that's part of that difference as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. What specific grants or one-time appropriations has our district applied for or received to help address budget shortfalls? I included this question because we were getting a lot of communication about creative thinking or thinking outside the box to try to find ways around school closures. And I feel like unless you have watched every single board meeting over the last 2.5 years, or you've attended every single committee meeting or read those minutes, that it would be very difficult for somebody in the community to know all of these things, because it's been kind of like a comprehensive effort. I mean, I only joined the board in December of 22, so I can't speak to what was done before then, but I know since those school closure conversations have happened, we have undertaken a behemoth of trying to find whatever way possible to fix funding issues. And so they're listed here. And again, this was just the stuff that I could kind of come up with off of the top of my head. And then I think the staff added a few things. So if any other board members can think of anything else, state and federal safety grants, these are things that we've pursued. We didn't necessarily end up getting them all, but they are things that we went after. State and federal safety grants, NC lottery capital funds. I know that we sent in those applications 3 years for NC lottery capital funds. By the way, the answer to those applications for NC lottery funds was a definitive no, because our district was so inefficient, because our schools were at 60% capacity. And I believe, Ms. Anderson, I think you were there when we heard that. I know that Ms. Williams and Mr. Peace were there as well when we heard that directly from DPI. NC General Assembly special appropriation applications, federal title grants, technology grants, thank you, Mr. Connor, student mental health grants, organizations and local industry businesses that donated to support professional development and convocation, and other miscellaneous project-specific grants. Does anybody have any that you can think of that we left out? Ms. LeBrecq, you've been around longer than me.
It's fine for now.
Okay.
I'm sure
If you do, we can always add it.
I'll come up with some after this meeting's
Yeah.
over.
So this was also a concern that we kept, that I felt like I saw more than once, so I wanted to make sure to include this. How many staff positions have been eliminated, combined, or left unfilled in recent years to reduce recurring costs? And I felt like it was really important to include that, because a lot of people, I feel like, are under the assumption that even though our student enrollment continues to decrease, that we've allowed our central office staff and that organization to remain the same. And we have seen that is absolutely not true. I don't know if you want to speak to that, because it's pretty much been under your tenure.
We've made a concerted effort to downsize. I always tell people I want to feel the pain first before we pass it down to the school. So you can see bulleted there. We've eliminated one of the senior staff operations, the operations position, a district director level, that senior level position, a mid-level, 2 mid-level, and then 1 classified level. So, you know, before I ask anybody else to cut, we're going to do it first.
Thank you. What programs have been discontinued because they were no longer cost-effective or sustainable? I mean, I think one of the first ones that I was pretty loud about was the International Baccalaureate program. And then I know that we have cut several others, and we found, the one-to-one laptops for students in grades K through second, that we will not be renewing. So, and that goes along with our intention to have more balanced, approach to learning. What flexible or discretionary budgets have been reduced to minimize spending? So, I want to thank Ms. Hines for all of her work with zero-based budgeting, because in the last 2 years, I have not heard of a single other school district in the entire state of North Carolina that has undertaken zero-based budgeting. Not a single other one. And we've been able to cut $1 million from departmental budgets, not from our schools and not from our classrooms, but from our departmental budgets. And that's really impressive. Also, the superintendent's budget and our attorney fees, so, which all comes out of our local budget, by the way.
Before we move on to the next section, we did have the electric bus grant that came through.
Look, the bus grant.
Thank you, Ms. LeBrecq.
All right.
Oh, wasn't there a propane one as well?
Yes.
So multiple bus.
Did you say that again? Because I couldn't hear you.
What, the electric buses that we were able to get, those were grants that our transportation program, department applied for.
Okay, can we go to anything else, Ms. Hayes, you want to share?
That was the end of my
All
section,
right,
I believe.
thank you for sharing that section there. Next, Ms. Anderson, share local funding limitations.
Yes, we were just talking a little bit about
Yeah, I
local
like-
funding. So this is on local funding limitations. Question 1, how much flexibility does the district have with its local funding from the Granville County Commissioners? The answer is very little. Nearly all local funds are committed to teacher and classified staff supplements and capital improvements. There are no significant discretionary funds that can be redirected without cutting directly into one of these two priorities. 2, could the district reallocate local funding from teacher supplements to keep Wilton or Cradle Elementary open? And the answer is no. Doing so would reduce local pay for every teacher and staff member, severely hindering retention and recruitment. It could also result in the elimination of certain locally funded positions. Next question. Could we redirect local funding from capital improvements to cover operational costs? The answer is no. Doing so would halt facility projects across the district, including roofs, HVACs, and safety upgrades, and worsen the existing multi-million-dollar maintenance backlog.
So, if we can, I would like to include an approximation of that backlog in the answer to that question. I know we've put a small dent in it over the past few years, but it's still massive.
Yeah, we can give, like, say, 5, 10, 15-year projections.
Yes.
Okay, we can add that here.
That'd be great.
Okay. Would this be for all the schools? This would be for
Yes,
all?
yes, district-wide, yes, ma'am.
District-wide. Okay. Next question. How does charter schools enrollment affect our local funding? The answer, a portion of both state and local funding follows each student to their charter school. Based on current data, the district stands to lose about 30% of its local allotment this year, and potentially more next year as charter enrollment grows. next question. Is there any realistic scenario where local funding alone could sustain Cradle or Wilton Elementary without major cuts everywhere?
Elsewhere.
I'm sorry, elsewhere. The answer is no. Funding Wilton or Cradle's operations locally would require either eliminating staff supplements or freezing capital projects, neither of which is sustainable.
So I think it's important here, because I didn't have the number really prior to today when we were in finance, but, if we could add in, Ms. Hines, because we were discussing, kind of the actual dollar amount instead of in terms of student numbers or position allotments. If we could put, I mean, because we're talking about millions lost in the state budget. So, if we could add that in, I think that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. And the last question. What happens if the district delays capital improvements to fund operations instead? The answer, besides safety, health, and legal implications, deferred maintenance compounds over time, as it has for the last 30 years. Small issues become multi-million-dollar repairs. It simply shifts today's crisis into a larger, unavoidable one later.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Speaking to the supplements here, we discussed it this morning as well. We are so close to Raleigh and Durham, and we need that money to keep those quality teachers in Granville County. And also, to keep them here is reduces turnover as well. When they're here longer, it's more plus for our students here, have those same teachers in the classroom each and every year. So we don't want to shake up the apple class. We want to keep the best people around. So that's not an option. All right, thank you for that. Mrs. Russell, you want to share the next section, please?
Yes. Strategic collaboration and revenue efforts. The first question reads, what steps has the district taken to improve our relationship with the county commissioners and secure more local funding? The answer, repaired relationships, annual joint meetings, quarterly liaison meetings, collaboration on joint capital projects, and we've achieved shared investments in high school facilities. The evidence includes an increase of our annual local capital outlay budget from $1.5 million to $3.25 million in the 2024-2025 fiscal year.
I'd actually like to make a point of just emphasizing that I do feel like from the time that Ms. Anderson and I originally rotated onto this board, there was a huge difference in how our two boards communicate with each other and the general openness that we seem to share now versus at the start of our term. So I do want to commend this board for making those efforts much better than they were previously. So,
Yeah.
Duly noted.
Second question, can you outline the recent capital improvement projects that were jointly or are planned to be jointly funded as a result of that improved collaboration? The answer, Granville County Public Schools has a master facility plan which guides our work in determining which repairs, renovations, and improvements are completed each year. This is determined by the availability of funds and the priority of need for individual projects. A comprehensive list of capital outlay projects with approximate costs for the past 5 years can be found on our website. It says here, so that's listed on our website. Or it's listed below.
I'll
there's
just
a
like,
spreadsheet that opens up.
I mean, we don't have to read everything word for word. If we can, I mean, you know.
Okay. So these figures listed below
In
here,
the
were updated in this
interest of
chart
time.
as of September this year.
In addition, our district is working to begin a $15 million capital improvement investment at our 2 high schools, and that work will begin in the summer of 2026. And you see the listed below at South Granville and J.F. Webb High School. What creative funding strategies or partnerships has the district explored before considering school closures? The answer: the district has explored energy efficient partnerships, community collaborations, state, federal, and private grant opportunities, and budget reallocations. In addition, the district has outsourced substitute teachers for cost savings and is considering outsourcing some custodial services for a net savings. The board has also created a legislative committee to effect positive change in the local, state, and federal levels, maintain productive relationships with legislators, and advocate for funding and the best interest of Granville County Public School students and staff to the decision makers who provide our resources. Board members and district leadership have maintained regular communication with state and federal legislators about ongoing funding challenges and unfunded mandates. And individual board members have collaborated with colleagues from across North Carolina to coordinate advocacy efforts in Raleigh and Washington, D.C. These efforts have already contributed to the introduction and advancement of some legislation, such as House Bill 192 for teacher compensation. If passed, these efforts could help alleviate pressure on the local budget and free up more funds for capital improvements.
And again, I felt like this question went back to kind of what we were seeing where people were asking for, what other things have we done? What other things have we looked at? What other things have we considered? And I think the point here is that there is so much more that goes on than just what happens around this table at our monthly meeting that people never see or that, they never really know about. The strides that this board has taken over the last 2 years to improve relationships with the people who actually decide how much money we get, because that's not up to us.
And we've invited legislators to our district. They've toured our schools, and at our last legislative meeting, our House Representative Brian Kahn was here. And gave him a list of what we'd like to do for us and our teachers.
And don't forget, we've also hit up Congressman Don Davis.
Yeah.
Sure did. Yes, we did.
So one of our federal representatives.
The other guy.
Brad Knott, Congressman Brad Knott, correct?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes.
We also adopted on some of it. If we choose not to make structural changes like consolidation, what would be the financial impact next year? Answer: the district would be operating in the red with an increased reliance on a shrinking fund balance, the cutting of programs and positions, and ultimately risking inability to meet payroll or maintain legal solvency as required under North Carolina General Statute 115C, Section 432.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Russ, for that.
You're welcome.
Our last section, ask Ms. Baker to cover that for us, and we'll close things out.
Yes, transparency and community accountability. Question one was, how many public budget meetings or workshops has the board held over the past 2 years to openly discuss our financial challenges? And that is monthly. We hold monthly meetings here, and it's posted that we hold those meetings the first Tuesday of every month. We include budget updates, financial, HR, and operation committee updates during that time. We also post those minutes on board docs including regular meeting agendas, and all the outcomes of those meetings? How much time did the board and administration spend studying alternatives before authorizing school closure studies? Every single minute for the last 2 years has involved discussion of financial stability and long-term planning. In addition, school consolidation studies span back at least 7 years, with many different campuses, conversions, closures, grade span configurations, and recombinations have been considered. Has the district leadership made any recommendations lightly or without exhausting other options? And the answer is absolutely no. Every possible reduction, efficiency measure, and funding source we collectively can think of has been explored before reaching this point.
Additional considerations, you want to count that, Mrs. LeGrett?
Sure.
Thank you.
If we could legally fundraise to sustain Cradle or Wilton, how much would we have to raise annually to keep either open, and could that realistically be replicated year after year? The answer is basically refer to the official studies for exact numbers, but it would be a recurring need exceeding 600,000 each year moving forward for only operational costs. That does not include capital improvement needs that also need to be considered. And it is critical to note that as enrollment declines, so does the funding available. And that annual need would continue to grow over time. Would the students who would move from Cradle or Wilton be reassigned to schools outside their community? The answer is no. West Oxford is 2 miles from Cradle and Stovall Shaw is 9 miles. Tar River is 1 mile from Wilton and Mountain Energy is 4 miles. Both serve the same community with adjacent attendance zones. And is this school funding problem due to students continuing to leave GCPS for charter schools? That is a loaded question. It is not entirely no. It is a fact that the number of students who reside in Granville County who are enrolled in charter schools continue to increase. However, the rate at which they are enrolling has leveled off, despite the fact that more charter schools continue to open our region. One of the main new drivers of our loss of enrollment is the reduction of school-age children who reside in Granville County. In just 1 year, from 2024 to 25 and from 2025 to 26, there are 300 plus fewer school-age children in our county who attended public, district, or charter schools. In addition, the overall funding issues are impacted by the rising costs associated with employing staff and operating our campuses. Health insurance increases, utilities increases, inflationary pressures, et cetera. And some of those are not necessarily, like those are actually designated from the state. Some of those things we don't have any control over either.
All right, thank you all. Let me say once again that from the community here, Mrs. Hayes came with these questions. We want to make sure that we try to turn over every rock and answer every question, so we'll make a clear and decisive decision when we come to closure and consolidation of a school here in Granville County. We're going to do our best, but decision has to be made. Any questions, comments from board members for the adjournment?
I just wanted to, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. If I may have a moment,
Please.
this is to the parents and anyone involved with C.G. Cradle or Wilton Elementary. Truly, the board members recognize your frustrations. They recognize your care and concern, and they recognize the need for comfort and consistency when it comes to daily routines for your children. And on the other side of that, we as a board are only looking for the best possible choices that would give us lower impact in a negative way with the future. Because we have to maintain and be here. But know that we are on the same page as you. We do understand your concerns and your frustrations. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
board member, for
we
those
read
comments.
all the emails that are sent to us, at least I do.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I may not respond, but I read them.
Thank you all for being great. You'll share some, Ms. Hayes?
I was just gonna say that, again, this is a draft document, and so that if any, board members or staff members, wanna add anything additional between now and the November meeting, please feel free to, email, myself or Dr. Winborn, and we'll make sure that those changes need to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if all minds are clear, I'd like to make,
May I just add
Yes.
one final comment?
you sure can.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a reminder to everyone who's listening here tonight, you did approve a timeline for this process. And so the next step is at the regular board meeting on November 4th for senior staff to present the final draft of the studies and the final updated FAQ document. So we will be preparing those. And again, as Ms. Hayes said, please send that feedback our way. And if any members of the public, I invite you to also reach out if you see any concerns or issues as well. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you as well. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So move.
It's been motioned that we adjourn the meeting. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Ayes.
Second.
Okay, you got a second? Got a second?
Second, yes.
Okay. It's been motion, proper second, that we adjourn the meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you all for coming.